"If you dance this waltz, you marry my son." The entire ballroom froze. Dozens of guests turned toward the source of the voice, Vivian Levington, standing at the top of the grand staircase like a queen passing judgment. Her diamond necklace shimmered under the chandeliers as she looked down, her eyes cold and daring. And across from her, still holding a silver tray of champagne flutes, stood Amara Johnson, the Levington family maid. The tray trembled slightly in her hands. The orchestra faltered mid-note. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Ma'am." Amara's voice barely escaped her throat. Vivian took a slow step forward, the heels of her silver shoes clicking against marble. "You heard me, dear. I said, if you dance this waltz, you marry my son." A cruel smirk touched her lips. "Unless, of course, you're afraid to touch a man born into money." Laughter followed. Not kind laughter, the kind that cuts. Amara looked around. The women in glittering gowns whispered behind manicured hands. The men smirked. And at the center of it all stood Ethan Levington, the billionaire's only heir, frozen in embarrassment. "Mother, that's enough," he said through gritted teeth. Vivian didn't even glance at him. "You wanted a fairy tale, didn't you, Ethan? You said you wanted a partner who could move with grace and passion." Her tone dripped with sarcasm. "Well, our maid here claims she used a dance. Let's give her a chance to prove herself." Another wave of laughter. Someone whispered, "This should be good." Amara's hands clenched around the tray. Her eyes burned with humiliation, but deep beneath the fear, something flickered. A memory, a rhythm. She'd promised herself she'd never dance again. Not after what happened years ago. Not after everything she lost. But right now, standing in front of the city's wealthiest crowd, her pride was being dragged through the dirt. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of the orchestra tuning back up, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Ethan stepped forward, voice low but firm. "You don't have to do this." Amara looked at him, then at his mother, and something inside her shifted. "No," she said quietly, setting down the tray. "I'll dance." The room erupted in murmurs. Vivian tilted her head, amused. "Really?" "Oh, darling, I was joking. But if you insist." She snapped her fingers at the conductor. "Play the Strauss." The violins began. The waltz echoed through the marble hall. Amara stepped into the light, every stare stabbing like needles. She placed one hand gently on Ethan's shoulder. He hesitated. "Trust me," she said softly. The first few steps were hesitant, uneven. The crowd chuckled. Then something changed. Amara closed her eyes. She stopped hearing the laughter. She stopped seeing the chandeliers, the gowns, the glares. All she heard was the beat in her chest. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And just like that, the maid began to dance. Her movements were smooth, effortless, alive. The same crowd that mocked her fell silent. The music filled the space like wind lifting fire. Ethan followed her lead instinctively, his steps aligning with hers. The rhythm wasn't perfect. It was human, real, beautiful. Halfway through the waltz, the whispers turned into stunned silence. The laughter was gone. Vivian's smirk faded. The chandeliers reflected 100 astonished faces watching a woman, in a maid's uniform, move like a queen. Amara spun gracefully, her skirt flowing like liquid shadow. When she stopped, her eyes met Vivian's, calm, unbroken. The final note struck. The room stayed quiet for a full breath. Then someone, one of the guests, began to clap. Then another. Then everyone. Ethan stepped back, breathing hard, staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Vivian said nothing. Her face was unreadable. Amara curtsied, then turned to leave, back toward the service hall, where she belonged. But before she could step away, Vivian's cold voice echoed again. "Impressive," she said slowly. "But remember, dear, you're still just a help." A hush fell again. Ethan glared at his mother. "That's enough." Vivian raised her hand. "No, my dear. I think the real question now is," she turned back to Amara, "where did you learn to dance like that?" Amara paused, her back to crowd. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Try me." Amara turned, meeting her gaze with quiet fire. I wasn't always a maid. The orchestra's soft hum lingered in the air, tension thick as glass about to shatter. Vivian's smile returned, slow, dangerous. Well then, Miss Not a Maid, we'll just have to find out who you really are. The applause still echoed faintly as Amara disappeared behind the kitchen doors. The second they swung shut, the muffled roar of the ballroom turned into the hum of refrigerators and clatter of dishes. She pressed her hands against the cold counter, breathing hard. Her palms were slick with sweat, but her pulse still matched the rhythm of the music. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. She hadn't danced like that in years. Not since the accident. Not since the night everything she loved collapsed under flashing lights and shattered glass. Amara? One of the other maids peeked around the corner. Miss Levington's looking for you, she said. Tell her I'm cleaning up, Amara said quickly. Tell her I'll finish the service wing tonight. The maid nodded nervously and left. Amara turned toward the staff corridor and froze. Standing in the shadows was Ethan Levington, his tie loosened, his expression unreadable. You shouldn't hide, he said softly. Amara startled. You shouldn't be here. He smiled faintly. You just made half the room question everything my mother believes about class and grace. I had to see if you were real. I'm as real as the paycheck I get for cleaning your family's floors. That's not what I saw out there. Their eyes met. For just a moment, long enough to make both of them look away. I wasn't trying to show off, Amara muttered. I was surviving. Ethan stepped closer. Then what were you surviving before this? Amara's jaw tightened. That's not your business. Before he could answer, the kitchen door slammed open. Vivian Levington entered. Every inch the queen again. Her tone was sweet poison. There you are. Ethan straightened. Mother, not now. She circled Amara like a cat. You move well for someone who claims to scrub floors for a living. It was just a dance, ma'am. Vivian's smirk deepened. A dance doesn't earn applause from society's finest. You've had training, serious training. She leaned in, voice a whisper. Where did you learn to move like that? Amara said nothing. Vivian's eyes narrowed. You have secrets, dear. I can smell them. Then maybe you should stop breathing so close, Amara said under her breath. Ethan stifled a laugh, but his mother's glare could have frozen blood. You'll regret that tone, Vivian hissed. I will find out who you are. Amara's chin lifted. Good luck. Vivian's lips curved. Oh, I don't need luck. I have money. The next morning, the mansion was unusually quiet. Vivian sat in her private study, sipping espresso while scrolling through her tablet. On the screen glowed a background check request. Amar Johnson, employment verification, criminal record, previous residences. She smiled to herself. Let's see what you're hiding, little dancer. Moments later, her assistant entered. Ma'am, the results you requested. Vivian opened the file and frowned. The data was blank. No record of formal education. No listed family. No dance certificates. But a newspaper clipping buried deep in the archives. National Youth Ballroom Champion. Amara Johnson and Caleb Wright win gold at the Grand Waltz Invitational. A photo accompanied it. A much younger Amara in a red gown, holding a trophy, smiling beside a partner. Vivian's eyes narrowed. A champion. She scrolled further. Another article. Tragedy strikes promising dance duo. Car accident ends rising careers. Her eyes darted over the paragraph. One survivor, one fatality. Amara Johnson, hospitalized for months. Her partner, Caleb Wright, deceased. Vivian leaned back slowly, realization sinking in. So that's your secret. She smiled, darkly satisfied. And I know exactly how to use it. That evening, Ethan found Amara polishing silverware in the hall. I heard what my mother's planning, he said. Amara didn't look up. You think that's supposed to scare me? She's digging into your past. Let her dig. She's not doing it to understand you, Ethan said. She's doing it to destroy you. Amara finally stopped, eyes locking onto his. Then maybe she'll finally see what real pain looks like. Ethan hesitated. What happened to you? Her voice softened. I lost someone who believed I could be more than this. He took a step closer. Your dance partner. Amara blinked once, sharply. You read about it. I didn't mean to. Everyone does. That's why I stopped dancing. Because every time I do, I see him fall all over again. The silence stretched between them, heavy, human, raw. Then Amara's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. If you want to keep your job, meet me in the ballroom. Midnight. She looked at Ethan. Your mother? He nodded grimly. She doesn't like losing control. Amara's fingers tightened around her phone. Then, maybe it's time someone took it from her. Midnight. The mansion was asleep. Only the faint echo of footsteps filled the empty corridors. Amara stepped into the ballroom, the same room where she'd been humiliated hours earlier. The chandeliers were off. Moonlight spilled to the glass ceiling. Vivian was waiting, standing by the grand piano, a single candle flickering beside her. Quite the little mystery, aren't you? She said. You called me here, Amara replied. Say what you came to say. Vivian smiled. I know about Caleb Wright, about the accident, about the championship you never claimed. Amara's breath hitched. Vivian stepped closer. Such a tragic story. 2 young dancers, one dream. One dies. The other hides behind a mop and apron. But tell me, her voice sharpened, why did you survive, Amara? Amara's fists clenched. Because I had to. Vivian tilted her head. Or because you're the one driving. Amara's blood ran cold. Vivian's smirk widened. Oh, don't look so shocked. Secrets have a way of dancing back into the light. Amara's eyes glistened, rage and pain colliding. You don't know what happened. Vivian leaned in. Then enlighten me. Amara's voice broke. He grabbed the wheel. He tried to save me. For the first time, Vivian blinked. The faintest flicker of humanity crossing her face. But only for a second. Then her voice turned sharp again. And yet you live in my house, pretending to be nothing more than help. That won't last long. Amara lifted her chin. Maybe you should worry less about my past, and more about your future. Vivian frowned. Excuse me? Because the next time I dance, it won't be for you. It'll be for everyone watching when you fall. The candle between them flickered violently, as if the air itself understood the war had just begun. The next morning, the Levington mansion buzzed with whispers. Maids avoided eye contact, but the air pulsed with gossip, like static before a storm. By noon, the storm hit. Vivian Levington stood before a small army of journalists gathered outside the state gates. The cameras flashed, and her smile was practiced, the kind designed to draw sympathy and control the narrative. Good afternoon, she began, her tone silky smooth. It has come to my attention that one of our household staff has been less than honest about her identity. Inside the mansion, Amara froze. Her phone buzzed alerts. Breaking news. Mysterious made exposed as former ballroom champion. Ethan burst into the service, corridor moments later, tablet in hand. She went to the press. Amara grabbed the device. The screen showed her old competition photos, splashed across headlines. Tragic star turned servant. Amara Johnson's fall from fame. Her heart pounded. She's using my pain as a headline. Ethan looked at her, jaw tight. Then we take it back. How? He met her gaze. By telling your story before she rewrites it. That night, Ethan showed up at the small diner where Amara took her breaks after long shifts. It was nearly empty, the hum of the neon sign outside flickering through the window. He sat across from her, a laptop open, recording software ready. You want me to go public? Amara asked quietly. You don't have to, he said, but the world's already watching. You can either let my mother define you, or you can define yourself. Amara looked down at her hands, scarred, trembling slightly. When I dance, I don't think. I just feel alive again. But talking about it, she shook her head. That's when it hurts the most. Ethan leaned closer. Then let them see the truth, not your pain, but your strength. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she sighed. Okay, but if we do this, we do it my way. 2 days later, the internet caught fire. A video titled "The Truth About Amara Johnson" appeared online. No glitz, no polish, just Amara sitting in a dimly lit room, speaking softly into the camera. "I used to believe dance was everything," she began. "Then one night, I lost the person who believed in me most." She talked about the accident, the guilt, the silence that followed, how she cleaned floors to survive, not because she was broken, but because she refused to stop living. Then she said, "When Mrs. Levington mocked me, I didn't dance to prove her wrong. I danced because it's the only language I have left, the only way I can still talk to him." The video hit 1 million views in 24 hours. Vivian watched from her study, face pale with disbelief. The comments flooded in faster than she could read them. "She's incredible. That woman has more class than the entire ballroom combined. The maid who danced her way back to life." Vivian slammed the tablet shut. "Who leaked this?" she demanded. Her assistant hesitated. "It wasn't a leak, ma'am. It was her." Vivian's jaw clenched. "She wants a war? Fine. I'll give her one." The following evening, the Levington family was hosting another gala. This one a charity fundraiser streamed live. The guest list included half the city's elite politicians and a few online influencers eager for drama. Vivian had planned everything meticulously, from the floral arrangements to the moment she reclaimed her control of the narrative. As the orchestra played, she addressed the crowd with a poised smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, in light of recent distractions, I would like to clarify certain rumors regarding my household." The audience murmured. Cameras zoomed in. "But first," she continued, "I believe actions speak louder than words. So tonight, I've arranged a little demonstration, a waltz, to remind us of grace, decorum, and the difference between class and chaos." Her cue. From the other side of the room, the orchestra shifted to a familiar melody, the Grand Waltz, the same piece Amara once danced to in competition. A spotlight snapped on, revealing Vivian's personal dance instructor, standing center floor. "Miss Johnson will not be joining us tonight," Vivian said, feigning pity. "After all, true grace cannot be taught. It's inherited." The audience chuckled politely. Then another spotlight flicked on. Amara. She stepped into view, wearing a simple black dress. Not a maid's uniform, just herself. The crowd gasped. Vivian's smile faltered. Who allowed this?" Ethan's voice cut through the noise. "I did." He stepped forward, microphone in hand. "My mother believes class is inherited. I believe it's earned." Vivian's face turned crimson. "Ethan." But he ignored her. "Miss Johnson, would you honor us with dance?" For a moment, Amara stood frozen, every instinct screaming run. Then she looked up. In the audience, phones were raised. The world was watching again. Her heart steadied. "Yes," she said. The orchestra began. Amara took her first step, slow, deliberate, powerful. Every note of the music carried the ghost of her past. But she didn't falter. Her movements were sharp, elegant, unrestrained. Halfway through, Ethan joined her. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't perfect. But it was alive. The audience fell silent. And then, as the final note rang out, the entire room erupted into applause. Vivian's expression hardened, but the camera flashes caught everything: her fury, Amara's triumph, Ethan's defiance. The next morning, headlines blazed again. "The maid who outdanced a millionaire, redemption on live TV." Vivian's empire of image had cracked wide open, but Amara's story was only beginning, because one of those watching online recognized her face. Someone who hadn't been seen since the night of the crash. The username read, Caleb Wright logged in. It was 2:47 a.m. when Amara saw it. Her latest video had just hit 3 million views. The comments section was flooding faster than she could read. Messages of love, support, disbelief. But then, in the middle of the chaos, one username made her heart stop cold. Caleb Wright, still think you can't dance without me? Her fingers trembled. It had to be a troll. Caleb was gone. He died in that car crash 3 years ago. She'd seen the wreck. She'd been in it. But something about the tone, The punctuation. It was exactly like how he used to tease her before every performance. She refreshed the page. The comment disappeared. Her pulse raced. No, I saw it. She checked again. Nothing. Then her phone buzzed with a private message request. From Anonymous. Meet me at the old recital hall. Midnight tomorrow. Don't tell anyone. Amara stared at the screen, her mind spinning. Ethan's voice suddenly echoed from behind her. You okay? She flinched, slamming the laptop shut. Yeah, just reading comments. He studied her face. You're shaking. I'm fine, she said, forcing a smile. Really? But he didn't buy it. Amara, if someone's harassing you, it's not that. She took a deep breath. It's someone I thought I'd never hear from again. The next day passed in a blur. Reporters kept calling. Sponsors wanted interviews. The mansion staff avoided Amara now, unsure whether to treat her as a hero or a threat. Vivian, meanwhile, locked herself away with her lawyer, fuming over contracts, trying to contain the wildfire that had burned through her reputation. Ethan humiliated me on live television, she hissed. Do you realize what that means for our family name? Her assistant hesitated. Ma'am, public sentiment is with Miss Johnson now. People like her. Vivian's eyes darkened. Then we make them unlike her. Everyone has secrets. Find hers. Midnight came fast. Amara arrived at the old recital hall, its entrance buried under vines and rust. The same place she and Caleb had trained years ago, back when they believed dance could fix anything. She stepped inside. Dust floated to the moonlight, slicing in from broken windows. Her heels clicked softly against the warped wooden floor. Caleb, she whispered. A shadow shifted near the stage. Amara, her breath caught. He stepped forward, older, thinner, with scars down one side of his face. But it was him. Caleb? Her voice cracked. How are you alive? He smiled weakly. Guess I don't die easy. She ran to him, but he raised a hand. Careful. People are watching. What are you talking about? He looked toward the ceiling corner. A faint red light blinked. A camera. They've been tracking me since the accident, he said quietly. Vivian's people. Vivian? Amara repeated. Why would she? He cut her off. Because I knew something she didn't want getting out. Amara's mind raced. What are you saying? Caleb hesitated. The crash was an accident. The words hit like a punch to the chest. What? He looked away. Vivian's company was laundering charity funds. I found out. I was going to expose her that night, but my brakes failed before I made it to the station. Amara staggered back. You think she did that? I don't think, he said quietly. I know. Her voice trembled. She tried to kill you, and I took the blame for your death. I quit dancing because I couldn't live with it. He took a step closer. Then, don't let her win again. The next morning, Vivian arrived at her office, calm, composed, sipping espresso as though her empire wasn't crumbling. Her phone rang. Mrs. Levington, you'll want to see this, said her assistant. The screen showed a leaked video, grainy security footage from a warehouse. It showed Caleb, alive, confronting two men with Levington security uniforms. Vivian's porcelain mask cracked for the first time. Where did this come from? Anonymous upload. It's going viral. Vivian slammed her cup down. It's him. That little dancer brought him back. Meanwhile, Amara and Caleb sat in Ethan's car outside the mansion. Ethan stared at Caleb like he'd seen a ghost. So you're saying my mother caused that crash? Caleb nodded grimly. And she'll do it again if we don't move fast. Ethan clenched the steering wheel. Then we expose her. Publicly. Amara turned to him. You'll go against your own mother? He looked straight ahead. For justice? For you? Yes. Caleb smiled faintly. You got courage, kid. Ethan's jaw tightened. Courage is easy when you got something worth fighting for. But Vivian was already a step ahead. By evening, a new headline took over the internet. Ex-champion Amara Johnson exposed her fraud. Fake boyfriend's death to gain fame. Amara's phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters, sponsors, strangers, all demanding answers. She scrolled through the photos attached to the article, doctored images showing her laughing beside Caleb's wrecked car, smiling, while headlines screamed manipulative maid. Tears stung her eyes. She's turning everything around on us. Ethan took her phone. We'll prove the truth. Caleb nodded. She's desperate now. That means she's close to slipping up. But Amara shook her head. No, this isn't just about proving her wrong anymore. She wiped her eyes, her voice firming with resolve. She destroyed my career, my peace, my reputation. Now, I'm taking back everything she stole. Ethan looked at her. There was steel in her tone now, something unbreakable. Then let's finish this, he said. Amara nodded. Tomorrow night, the Levington Charity Ball. As the camera pulled away from their car, the city lights flickered in the distance like dying stars. 3 people, 1 truth, 1 final showdown. And in the shadows, Vivian Levington prepared her next move, not knowing that this time, the maid she mocked would be her downfall. The night air shimmered with rain as black limousines lined up outside the Levington mansion. Reporters stood behind barricades, cameras flashing against the marble columns. Inside, the ballroom glittered like a movie set. Chandeliers blazing, violins playing softly, waiters gliding between guests holding champagne. Everything looked perfect on the surface, but under that perfection, something dangerous was brewing. Amara adjusted her mask in the mirror of the women's lounge, a sleek black domino that framed her eyes. It wasn't part of the dress code. It was armor. Caleb's voice buzzed in her earpiece. "You're in?" "Yeah," she whispered. "And you?" "Roof access. Security feeds looping. You've got 15 minutes before she notices." Ethan's voice cut in next. "Mom's already on stage. She's making her big speech. You're up soon." Amara nodded, looking at her reflection one last time. Gone was the maid who mopped floors and bowed her head. The woman staring back was fire wrapped in silk. "Then let's finish this," she said. Vivian Levington stood before the crowd, radiant in a silver gown, the picture of grace. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice smooth as glass. "Tonight, we celebrate generosity, the virtue that separates the refined from the reckless." A polite chuckle rolled through the audience. Ethan stood near the back, his fists clenched. Every word from her mouth twisted tighter around his nerves. Vivian continued. "And in that spirit, I've arranged a special presentation to remind us that no matter where one comes from, some simply aren't meant for the spotlight." A murmur rippled through the guests. Then the doors opened. Amara stepped in. Gasps erupted around the ballroom. She was wearing a gown of deep crimson, bold, unapologetic, the exact color Vivian had banned from her wardrobe years ago because it commanded too much attention. Vivian's massive calm cracked for a fraction of a second before she smiled again. "Ah, Miss Johnson," always eager to perform. Amara smiled back, coldly. "You like a good show, don't you?" The orchestra stilled. Every eye turned to the stage. "Why don't we give them one?" Amara said, and tossed something at Vivian's feet. A flash drive. Ethan's cue. He slipped behind the sound booth and plugged it in. The giant screen behind the stage flickered. First static, then video footage. Vivian's smile froze as her own voice filled the speakers. "Make sure the breaks are cut. I don't care what it costs. That man dies tonight." Gasps rippled through the room. Vivian spun toward her son. "Ethan, turn it off." But Ethan didn't move. His eyes were wet, voice trembling. "You killed him." The screen changed again, more footage. Hidden camera video from Vivian's office. Caleb arguing with her, demanding she confess. Then the sound of a car engine roaring, tires screeching. The feed cut out. Silence. Then a slow clap echoed from the balcony. Caleb stepped into view. Vivian went pale. "I told you ghosts don't stay buried," he said, descending the stairs. Cameras flashed. Guests whispered. Vivian took a step back, her mask of control shattering. "You don't know what you're doing. You'll ruin everything." Amara's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "You already did." The crowd parted as Amara approached her, every step echoing. "You mocked me for being a maid. You destroyed my career. You lied about his death. Vivian raised her chin, desperate, trembling. I gave you a roof. I gave you food. You gave me chains. Amara shot back. The room went dead silent. Then Ethan stepped forward, pulling a small envelope from his jacket. And I'll make sure you face justice. He handed it to one of the journalists. Documents Caleb had recovered, detailing years of embezzlement and bribes under Vivian's name. Vivian's voice cracked. Ethan, please. He shook his head. You don't get to call me that anymore. As police sirens wailed in the distance, Vivian made one last desperate move. She lunged for the flash drive on the floor, trying to destroy it. Amara caught her wrist midair. Their eyes locked. Years of power, humiliation, and silence burning between them. You said I'd never belong here, Amara said quietly. But tonight, you're the one being escorted out. The police burst in, cuffing Vivian as cameras rolled. Flash after flash after flash. The once glamorous queen of high society, now just another scandal on every screen. Amara turned away, tears blurring her vision. She wasn't crying for Vivian. She was crying because the battle was finally over. Caleb stepped beside her, gently taking her hand. It's done, he whispered. Is it? She asked softly. Because it doesn't feel like winning. He smiled faintly. Justice never does. But it's freedom. Ethan approached, eyes red. I'll testify. Against her. For both of you. Amara looked at him. Broken, brave, and finally free of his mother's shadow. Thank you. Outside, as dawn began to break, reporters swarmed the gates. Flashbulbs chased the trio as they walked down the marble steps. Caleb limping slightly, Ethan walking between them, and Amara holding her head high. A journalist shouted, Amara, any words for Mrs. Levington? She paused, glancing back at the mansion glowing behind them. Yes, she said softly. Tell her, the waltz is over. Then she turned and walked away. But as the trio disappeared into morning light, the camera panned back to the ballroom, where one of Vivian's discarded phones buzzed on the floor. A new message lit up the screen. Unknown number. It's not over. She knows too much. The screen faded to black. Rain tapped softly against the window of Amara's small apartment. For the first time in years, the city felt quiet. No interviews, no flashing cameras, just silence. She sat by the window, a cup of tea growing cold in her hands, watching the world outside move on. It had been 3 weeks since the charity ball. Vivian Levington was awaiting trial. The footage, documents, and Caleb's testimony had exposed everything. Fraud, attempted murder, obstruction. The headlines had changed. From Maid to hero, Amara Johnson's story of strength inspires millions. Ethan Levington cuts ties, donates family estate to victims' fund. The maid who danced through fire. But none of it felt like victory. Not really. She sighed and glanced at the unopened envelope on her desk, the one from Caleb. He'd left it the morning after the ball, before vanishing again. Something tells me this isn't goodbye, he'd said. But if it is, you'll understand why when you read that. For 3 weeks, she couldn't. Until now. She unfolded the letter slowly. The handwriting was familiar, uneven, strong, alive. Amara, if you're reading this, I've gone to finish what we started. There's still one name missing from the records, the man who ordered Vivian to silence me. He's still out there, and I won't stop until I find him. You taught me that surviving isn't enough. We have to live. Keep dancing. Don't wait for me. But don't forget me either. Love, always. Caleb. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she let herself cry. Not from grief, from release. She looked up. Her old piano stood against the far wall, dusty and silent. Slowly, she crossed the room, sat down, and pressed a single key. The sound was soft, cracked, but real. The following evening, Ethan stopped by. He looked different. Lighter somehow, no longer carrying the weight of his mother's sins. You're really leaving? He asked. She nodded. Yeah, the academy invited me back, as a teacher this time. A small smile tugged at his lips. You'll be incredible. You sure you're okay? She asked. He exhaled. I don't know. Watching my mom go from a woman I admired to what she became, it's been hard. But I needed to see it, to start over, not as her son, but as me. Amara touched his arm gently. That's brave. He smiled faintly. Guess I learned from the best. A soft pause lingered between them. Then Ethan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, a golden keychain in the shape of a waltz dancer. Found this in the ballroom after everything ended, he said. Thought it might belong to you. She turned it over in her palm, eyes glistening. It was Caleb's. They stood there for a long moment. Two survivors bound by loss, truth, and something deeper neither could name. Finally, she said quietly, You know, for all her cruelty, your mother was right about one thing. Ethan looked confused. What's that? Amara smiled sadly. The waltz does reveal who's meant to stand together. She just never realized that strength isn't found in blood, it's found in spirit. Weeks later, the Levington Ballroom Academy reopened under new management, renamed the Amara Foundation for Performing Arts. The grand hall was filled with laughter and music again. Children danced. Teachers clapped in rhythm, and sunlight poured through the windows like gold. Amara stood at the center, guiding her students through their first steps of the waltz. Don't count it, she said softly. Feel it. Her movements were fluid, effortless, not performance, but peace. As the students twirled, she caught sight of something outside the window. A man in a gray hoodie, watching from across the street. Scarred face. Familiar eyes. Caleb. She froze, heart pounding. Their eyes met for just a moment. Then he smiled, that same teasing smile, and turned to disappear into the crowd. She ran to the window, but he was gone. Still, a folded piece of paper was wedged in the doorframe. She unfolded it. Just one line written in his messy scrawl. The music never ends. It just changes keys. That night, the city glowed below her apartment balcony. Amara stood there in her red gown, the one she wore the night she reclaimed her name, and held the keychain up to the moonlight. Behind her, the radio played softly, a waltz, slow, melancholic. She closed her eyes and began to dance, alone but not lonely. Every step was a memory, every spin a heartbeat. And as she turned, her reflection in the window blurred, shifting. Not the maid, not the victim, not the champion. Just Amara, whole again. The music swelled, fading into the night breeze. And her voice, calm, strong, final, echoed softly in narration. They said the waltz decides who belongs. Maybe they were right. Because sometimes life partners you with pain first, so you can recognize grace when it finally arrives. Inspired by those who keep dancing, even after the music stops.